Welcome back to the Gruber Company's Artificial Future Podcast. I'm Pete Gruber, and this is our informal Sunday morning AI podcast where we review the latest happenings in the world of artificial intelligence. And one of the big ones this week was an interview between Mark Zuckerberg and Lex Fridman, which was a debut for Meta's new codec avatars that uses scanning technology to build 3D models of a user's face. If we can throw up an image there, Jesse, it's called Lex. And watching this thing was pretty remarkable. In fact, not just for the audience, but for the people that were involved in this, both Lex and Mark. The realism was, and this is, of course, first pass. We had a picture in the last podcast where we showed what this looked like a year ago, and it was cartoonish. But what you're seeing now to the right is Lex Fridman's avatar face, and it's amazing the degree of detail, from hairs to stubble to crow's feet in the eyes. And of course, it's still first pass. This is still a burgeoning technology. It'll be remarkable what this will morph into. So our thumbnail actually leads us into this. And this was something from Mark Zuckerberg. He said that by demoing this virtual reality avatar, he was asked how the tech could be used to create virtual versions of deceased loved ones. He said it was a complex idea, but there was probably some balance for the concept. That you could eventually interact with loved ones who have passed away. AI can, obviously harvest a great amount of detail from not just visual, facial, all of that, but also create different variations from youth through, old age to the point to where they became deceased. It is able to harvest, collect, and assimilate voice, inflection, personality, and they feel that the future is that you'll actually be able to ask people that are no longer on the planet questions and have some lifelike responses to that. During the interview, Fridman said, "I would love to talk to people who are no longer here that are loved ones. So if you look into the future," and he's asking Mark, "is that something you think about?" And again, he said, yes, the concept of creating virtual sessions of a deceased person by using VR and AI technology is quite realistic. And however, he tempered that. He said, if someone has lost a loved one and is grieving, there may be ways in which being able to interact or relive certain memories could be helpful. Caveat, though, he said there's also an extent to which this could become unhealthy. But then he quickly stepped away from that any further opinions by adding, "I'm not an expert in that, so I think we'd have to study that and understand it in more detail." I told one of the people here about it before the podcast yesterday, actually, and her comment was, "My God, that sure seems creepy." Well, it's probably one term that comes to mind. But again, on the flip side,
Yeah, it's a little creepy.
yeah, things like closure, things that you wanted to say but weren't able to. Now, granted, it won't be the physical entity and consciousness anymore, but there could be a degree of closure for people. Anyway, interesting concept. And Fridman was, however, impressed by how realistic Meta's new avatars were. It was, of course, a vast improvement from its previous attempts. And the technology, when it first came out, was, as they put it, savagely mocked online. All right, it looks like we don't have any questions coming in yet or comments, so I'm going to move to the next item here. Can we bring up a picture of Ray Dalio? And the reason that Ray Dalio is in the news is that he chimed in and expressed some opinions about artificial intelligence, claiming that AI will soon be a great disruptor in all our lives, for both better and worse. So at this point, we're not saying anything new. But the point is, why should we be listening to Ray Dalio? Well, Ray, it turns out, is the owner of Bridgewater Associates, which is the world's second largest hedge fund with about $200 billion in assets. He's been around since 1975 doing this, and he weighs in on some AI issues here. So, what he says is AI will help people make strides in productivity, education, healthcare, and even usher in a 3-day work week. Some of the most recent comments have been AI is certainly tuned and capable of ending diseases that we've struggled with for many decades, like cancer and many, many others. And that'll be an interesting breakthrough, Jesse, is once AI finally tackles one of these really tough ones, and it will again launch AI into the forefront even more than it is now. All these comments were made Tuesday at the Fast Companies Innovation Festival in 2023. He also adds it'll likely disrupt jobs, be a cause of argument for employees and legislators who support halting or slowing down AI's evolution. But he says all of these changes are going to happen in the next 5 years. And he says not at the 5-year mark, they are going to occur the entire time till then. And he says you're going to see changes next year, the next year, even bigger changes, and it's all going to change very fast. Some developments in, for example, ChatGPT have already exceeded most people's expectations. It, for example, now passes the Wharton MBA exams, and it allegedly helped someone win the lottery in Thailand. This is all after a year after its launch. I'm going to talk about that winner of that lottery here in a moment. He says that job disruptions may also be underway as more than 100,000 actors striking for better wages, the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, is lobbying now to replace some of them with artificial intelligence. No surprise there. I mean, we mentioned that weeks ago when we said, man, your timing is terrible. At this point, the studio execs still seem to think that you guys are not expendable, but you're forcing them to explore other options. And guess what they're going to find? That one is being resolved, though, is it not? Were you mentioning that?
I think so. I think they've done, they've won some contracts in that strike where they're not going to be able to use AI.
Then he says this trend could expand to other industries, too. He says 49% of U.S. CEOs and executives say that their current workforce skills won't be relevant by 2025. According to a survey from online education platform published on Tuesday. All right, so you heard it. There's a guy in Thailand that actually used artificial intelligence to win the lottery. And here's how this story unfolds. He used ChatGPT to generate numbers that helped him win the lottery. His name is Pathawikorn Boonrin, and the story recently went viral after he shared details on TikTok of how he used AI's chatbot, developed by OpenAI, to generate numbers that he in turn used to play the lottery and win. His strategy includes inputting some hypothetical questions as well as some prior winning numbers as a ChatGPT query. Now, the winning numbers for Boonrin's draw were 57, 27, 29, and 99. And guess what he won? 2,000 Thai baht, their currency, which is about $59. Well, it doesn't matter how much he won. The fact that if this is truly linked and there is a connection, this could revolutionize some things. He said that he had used ChatGPT before, the first time that he won, however. And he also said that ChatGPT told him not to get too obsessed with the method, noting that the winning lottery was a matter of luck. And also, this is ChatGPT 4 talking to him now, suggesting that he should go out and get some exercise. I think the guardrails were down during that comment.
Yeah. We had one of our employees use that too.
Yeah, tell me about it.
1 sec, let me put this.
Was that Richard?
Yeah, so our video editor and person who usually runs the questions for our show used ChatGPT as well to. We were both kind of using it. And I was asking it, what are the chances of winning? Is there a way to predict numbers? But then Richard used it to generate some numbers. Now, unfortunately, we did not win anything, but if you can feed, I wonder how that would work if it really is randomized. If we were to get all of the winning numbers for, say, the last 10 years
Ah,
and feed it into ChatGPT and have it do some kind of predictive analysis, I wonder what it would come up with.
mm-hmm.
I don't know. Strange.
Yeah, it's thought-provoking. So Boonrin plans to share more about his experience using ChatGPT to generate lottery numbers on his TikTok channel. Obviously, he's now got a huge following, and he's going to build on that momentum. And as they predict, surely he will garner even more attention if he scores another, even greater win. That might, however, introduce lottery companies into the ongoing conversation surrounding the ethics of ChatGPT. Now, remember, the gaming industry is massive around the world, and this could be an existential threat. So it'd be interesting to see if they weigh in on this methodology. Now, there have been several opinions about the ethics and issues with ChatGPT since its inception of November 2022. And there are institutions like colleges and universities that have actually banned the use of AI chatbots under the premise that it could ramp up plagiarism and cheating on campuses. Well, of course, people are writing books with this stuff.
So there's a way around that, though.
What's that?
So 'cause I still every now and then take a class at ASU. If I were to go on my computer and get all of the papers that I have written over the last, 4 or 5 years,
Right?
feed those into ChatGPT as a pretext, I could have it write in my own perfect style, and people would never know that I'm using a chatbot.
Right.
Because that's more or less, ChatGPT is almost instantly capable, we talked about this last week, of generating text that would be indistinguishable from Ernest Hemingway we talked about.
Right.
Because it has that data set and it can write in that style. I don't think there is really a way they would be able to detect it. Maybe I'm wrong, but
falls into the category of how do they control it? How will the regulators determine? Yeah.
well, especially if it can imitate me and it's in my style.
Right.
How are you going to accuse me of plagiarizing my own work? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I remember in high school when you would go to, you had a book report due and you wanted a synopsis to prove that you read the book. Sometimes I'd go to the library and I'd go to the back of the book and I'd take the author's, synopsis and got nailed instantly because the teacher called me over and he'd go, Gruber, you don't write this well. I know where this came from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a little different style.
It needed to be in my style, yes. All right, so then they say, however, the implementation has not been without folly. Publications using AI to quietly generate articles have been found publishing pieces with inaccurate information, artwork that is supposed to be human-like, but instead missing limbs and digits. And the GPT language model used by other companies has gone rogue when pushed out to the public. So it's got a bit more development work, it sounds like, but it's definitely a direction that it's headed in. So what do you think of Boonrin's win, the lottery win? Was it just dumb luck, or could ChatGPT predict winning numbers? If so, can the process be replicated by anyone, resulting in many winners in the future? And finally, should lottery companies be worried? Interesting, thought-provoking questions. Love to get your answers to all of that, by the way. And when you do chime in, let us know where you're coming in from. That's always appreciated by us and the audience. So got a picture here of someone that I was unaware of, Mira Murati.
All right.
She is the young CTO, Chief Technology Officer of OpenAI. And she's instrumental in building ChatGPT and shaping your future. Well, she was in an interview with Fortune magazines and about the ultra-high stakes in the generative AI revolution. So the reporter says, just moments before he was supposed to meet with Mira, the CTO of OpenAI in San Francisco headquarters, another executive from OpenAI exited the conference room space, and it was the co-founder, CEO Sam Altman. And as they said, the nerdy frontman of AI Revolution darts in from another room, gathers his belongings, which underwhelmingly consists of just a laptop, and shuffles away quietly, clearing the path for Murati to take the center stage. So as you know, Sam Altman is typically the public face of this OpenAI. In fact, he was recently flown back to Washington, D.C. to talk to Congress about regulation, along with a bunch of other early AI pioneers, including Elon. Lesser well known, however, is this Murati, Mira. I'm having a hard time with that name suddenly. Mira Murati. And she is now getting into the spotlight, it appears. Mira is only 34. She is the executive who manages the popular chatbot ChatGPT, along with DALL-E, which are all OpenAI systems that create art from text and text. Which of course has propelled OpenAI, started 8 years ago as a nonprofit in a research lab, which has now risen to unforeseeable heights. Let's grab a question here. We've got YouTube EV Fan. He's saying, they say the lotto is supposed to be designed to be random, but I would like to know as well, as would a lot of other people, I'm sure. Instagram, gr7_auto_gear says, hi, welcome, thanks for joining us. So they go on and they say, and this is part of the Fortune interview with Mira. So they say OpenAI has been credited with single-handedly ushering the latest evolution of technology, so-called generative AI, and all that attention is starting to translate into real dollars. While it's estimated that ChatGPT's growth with consumers has slowed in the recent months, usage among corporate customers is booming. No surprise there. We're still trying to find ways to integrate it into our call centers and sales
it's
teams.
very useful.
And we use it all the time. In fact, Jesse, whenever I'm agonizing over writing script or something, or even an email, he says, did you use ChatGPT 4? And yep. And embarrassingly enough, it does a much better job than I could ever dream up. And I end up using it instead. So they say this year, OpenAI is reportedly on track to rake in more than $1 billion in revenue. And that's quite a leap, because documents that emerged as part of the investment round earlier this year suggested that OpenAI brought in just under $30 million in revenue in 2022. It's quite a jump, go from 30 million to 1 billion in 1 year. And the company's deal with the software giant Microsoft, which actually Mira helped oversee, has brought in all sorts of new possibilities for distribution, not to mention a $10 billion investment from the Gates Foundation or from Microsoft. So just as the plain-looking exterior of this office at OpenAI, with highly stylized decor inside, they mentioned, they were surprised by Mira's casual appearance in jeans and a T-shirt, but an inner intensity that is quickly apparent as you talk with her. They say she answers questions slowly and thoughtfully, with a tone that's both relaxed and ardent. Now, this must have been ChatGPT. It sounds like it. Yeah. After all, they say Mira says she spends her time thinking not just about the latest ChatGPT features, but also about whether AI will bring about the end of humanity. We have to insert that somewhere, I'm sure. So anyway, here is Mira's background. She joined OpenAI in 2018, following a stint at Tesla. But she didn't follow an obvious path to Silicon Valley's most high-profile companies. She spent her formative years in her native Albania, growing up during the Balkan country's shift from totalitarian a communist system to a more democratic government. But the transition, she says, was sudden and somewhat chaotic, and she says that she credits the old regime with one thing. When everything else was equal, there was an intense competition for knowledge. And while the internet in Albania was quite slow back then, she was already seeking answers to her many questions, including how the human brain works, and looking for ways to apply technology to life's biggest problems. So at a tender age of 16, she left her home country after she was awarded a scholarship to attend an international school in Vancouver, Canada. She then later got an engineering degree from Dartmouth and eventually made her way to San Francisco for a senior product manager role at Tesla's Model X, or on their Model X project. She had set her sights on cultivating a higher intellect, and one of the first things that drew her to OpenAI was a company's belief that it can achieve artificial general intelligence. Now, this is the sci-fi like concept of a computer that can understand, learn, and think about things just like a human can. She's an AGI believer, too, and an optimist when it comes to AI more broadly. But that doesn't mean that she's not clear-eyed about some of the very real risks that AI poses today and in the future. Now, Jesse, you had mentioned that there was a recent Joe Rogan interview with Sam Altman, and it looks like he may be modifying his views on automatic general or artificial general intelligence.
Yeah, he went on Joe Rogan in the last few days. Did quite a long podcast over there talking about a range of topics, but one of them, he was saying that basically his views have changed, and I only saw the clip, so I don't have the whole context, but he said his views changed from artificial intelligence being this kind of monumental moment, similar to when the first nuclear tests went off for the nuclear bomb a long time ago. And now he believes it's a spectrum where it's going to develop in various pieces as the technology advances and the compute power advances, and we're more or less going to find ourselves in this kind of AGI world as opposed to this kind of big moment when it just happens.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
It's a more sensible transition, I think. There's enough rapid change occurring now for us to assimilate.
Yeah.
So anyway, they say that Mira, to learn more about her path to OpenAI and the challenges that the company must grapple with as its products become more ubiquitous, plus the latest version of DALL-E and new features within ChatGPT, and this one had us excited, which will now include voice commands for the first time. A move that could make the next iteration of generative AI even more user-friendly and bring it and its makers one step closer to omnipresence. So then they asked her a number of questions, but before we do that, let me see if I have got. No, I guess we go into the questions next. She did an interesting experiment then with this vocalization process that is now available, and we'll get to that in here in a second. So they asked her. They said, "Let's take a step back. There's so much interest, not just in the product, but the people making all this happen." And can we throw up a picture here, Jesse? Mira, Murati, and team. Murati, there we go. And
there you go, with all the other founders.
Exactly.
Except Elon's not there, noticeably.
No, he's not, because he had already left by then. But they asked her, they said, there's so much interest. What do you think the most formative experiences you've had and how it has shaped you, who you are today? Well, she said certainly growing up in Albania was one of her biggest formative experiences, and her time at Tesla and working in this position in, I guess, aerospace. She says those were all formative moments, going through the whole experience of design and deployment as of a whole vehicle, and then definitely coming to OpenAI. Now, she said that when she got there were just 40 or 50 of them. And it was just basically a research lab. She says, now we're a full-blown product company with millions of users, in fact, 100 million, I believe now, or in excess of, and a ton of technologists. Actually, OpenAI now has about 500 employees and growing rapidly. So she says, or they asked her, how did you meet Sam Altman, and how did you first come to OpenAI? Well, she said that she had already been working on certain AI applications while at Tesla. But she says she was more interested in general intelligence, and she was sure that it was going to happen at that point. But she knew that even if they got very close, that things would build along the way, and it would be incredible to be part of that. This is the most important set of technologies she feels that humanity has ever built. And I think, those of us that are interested in this would agree with that. She wanted to be part of that. She says OpenAI was kind of a no-brainer because at that time it was just OpenAI. It was just OpenAI, and it was Google owned by that time, and Google's DeepMind working on this. So it really resonated with her. She joined when it was a nonprofit, and then obviously since then she said we had to evolve. These supercomputers are very expensive. And in 2019, she says OpenAI transitioned to a for-profit company, though still governed by a nonprofit board. And of course, that was around the time that I think Elon probably exited permanently at that point. And most recently is actually competing, and we'll talk about that here in a moment. She says, at the time, I remember meeting Greg Brockman. She says, I remember meeting Ilya Sutskever and Wojciech Zaremba and then Sam Altman. And it just came clear to me that this was a group of people I wanted to work with. And you can see some of them there. In that picture, by the way, we see Sam Altman, of course, Mira to the far left, CEO Greg Brockman, and then Ilya Sutskever, and who is the chief scientist at the company as of March 2023. All right, looks like, New Zealand is joining us. Kia ora from Aotearoa. Love your work. Well, thank you for joining us. And again, Mark does a much better job pronouncing those names, but he's not here today. He will be, though, Tuesday next week. Make sure to join us. So they asked Mira, you have some additional product news. Can you walk us through the biggest highlights here? All right. She says, so the overall picture is what we've been talking about for 2 years is that our goal is to get to artificial general intelligence, and we want to get there in a way that makes sure that AGI goes well for humanity, that we are building something that's ultimately beneficial. To do that, you need these models and have robust concepts of the world in text and images and voice in different modalities. So what we're doing is we're bridging all of these modalities together in ChatGPT, and we can't wait until we can actually talk to it rather than text it. They are bringing DAL-E 3 to ChatGPT, and I predict it will be a huge deal, just a wonderful thing to interact with. And of course, this new modality is voice. So now you'll have the ability to just talk with ChatGPT in real time. So then she says, I'm going to do that in a demo. And I'm going to show you how you can just talk to it. So at this point, Mira grabs her phone. She opens up ChatGPT and then proceeds to prompt the app, tell me something interesting via a voice command. And the chatbot responds, did you know that honey never spoils? So I decided, you know what, I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to open up ChatGPT 4. I say, tell me something interesting. And here's the response from ChatGPT 4. It's a bit more lengthy than what it told Mira. So ChatGPT 4 says, certainly, here's a fascinating tidbit from the realm of biology. Did you know that octopuses have 3 hearts? 2 of these hearts pump blood to the gills, while the third pumps to the rest of the body. Interestingly, when an octopus swims, the heart that delivers blood to the body actually stops beating. And then it continues. These incredible creatures are highly intelligent, and their complex nervous system and ability to change color and texture make them unique in the animal kingdom. Their intelligence is believed to be on par with that of some mammals, despite having evolved separately from them for over 500 million years. It continues, moreover, octopuses, isn't the plural of octopuses octopi?
That's what I was going to say. Maybe.
So ChatGPT got that wrong. Moreover, octopuses, I'll use their language, have an impressive ability to learn and remember information. And they can use tools, unscrew lids, to get to food. You've probably seen that. You see them inside the tank, and they use some of those tentacles and multiple arms to actually unscrew something that might have a tidbit of food inside. And they exhibit a variety of complex behaviors, which is remarkable considering their relatively short lifespan of only 1 or 2 years. Did not know that. So their learning experience is fairly short. It takes us as humans a few decades to really get it together. So the world of octopuses, and again, using their plural version of that, showcases the incredible variety and adaptability found on Earth's creatures, illustrating the wonders of evolution and the endless possibilities that nature presents. So for those of you interested, and you've got ChatGPT, try that yourselves. Just say, tell me something interesting. In fact, I'm going to try that with Alexa when I get home. She may do the same thing. So then they asked her, we're talking about Mira Murati, 24-year Albanian that is the chief technology officer at OpenAI. 34-year-old. Yeah, I got
34.
that wrong. Take us back to when you first released ChatGPT into the world. Did you have any sense that it would be this big, that it would bring so much attention to the team? Her answer, no. We thought it would be significant, and we prepared for it. But then, of course, all the preparation became completely irrelevant, like a few hours later. We had to really adapt and change the way that we operate. But I think that's actually the key to everything that we're doing, because the pace of advancement in technology is just incredibly rapid. Now, then they asked her another question on the regulatory side. Now, this is a big one. You know, most people heavily involved in AI are very much concerned about its integration with humanity and some of the dangers that it may pose. So they asked her on the regulatory side, you've said that you're pro-regulation, but what would you say are the one or two most important pieces of AI regulation that you think should happen quickly? And what concerns you about AI being unleashed into the world? She answers, I think the most important thing that people can do right now is actually understand it. And I agree with that. That's one of the reasons we do these podcasts. We share an optimism regarding new technologies, and we encourage people to embrace it before we decide or weigh in on its dangers. But she says, looking ahead, we want these technologies to be integrated, like deeply embedded in our infrastructure. And if these technologies are going to be in our electrical infrastructure, you need not only the technical aspects of it, but also the regulatory framework. We need to start somewhere in order for that to become a reality eventually. She says another area in which it is very important is just thinking about the models that will have what we call dangerous capabilities. There are two types of misuse. There's a normal misuse, and there is a treacherous turn of these AI systems. And for the case where this is a treacherous turn, how should we think about it, she asks? Because this is not just a day-to-day use. It's technology that will probably affect international politics more than anything that we have ever built. The closest example or case of that is nuclear weapons, of course. So it is about how we can build regulation that will mitigate that. Well, in my last podcast, toward the end of the podcast, I went on the rant, and I made a bold statement, which is I can't wait for AI, which is infinitely smarter than us, to take over these nuclear weapons and all these weapons of mass destructions and neutralize them. It will level the playing field and hopefully put humanity on a completely different course toward a utopian society versus this crazy society that we're in currently. And I may go on a rant at the end of this podcast, so stay tuned on that very topic. So again, I mentioned the term a utopian society. Well, the definition of a utopian society is a place, state, or condition that is ideally perfect in respect to politics and laws, customs, and conditions. This does not mean that the people are perfect, but the system is perfect. So one of the main characteristics of a utopian society is information and independent thought and freedom are promoted. So if AI moves us to a utopian society, it looks like we're the ones that are going to need guardrails.
Good point.
Now, here's an interesting one. We've got a picture here that we can pop up. This is a team at Northwestern University that has, using AI, has developed a intelligently designed robot from scratch. And it's the picture robot. It doesn't look like anything that we're used to expecting a robot to look like. And of course, in our limited view, they need to look like us. They need to have arms, legs, a head, a chest. They need to be able to move like us. They need to have the same sensory inputs that we have. And this is what AI This is what AI came up with. So to test this new research to design a robot from scratch using strictly AI, they gave it a simple prompt: design a robot that can walk across a flat surface. Now, the takeaway here is, while it took nature billions of years to evolve the first walking species, this new algorithm compressed evolution at lightning speed by designing a successfully walking robot in mere seconds. For those of you interested, there's a video out here, and you can see this little blob actually moving forward, walking. The takeaway here is that AI is capable of instant evolution. I'm not talking about billions of years anymore. And the comment made by the people working on this is that unfortunately evolution has no foresight. It cannot see ahead of time and see if a mutation is beneficial or catastrophic. So they found that AI was able to compress the blind spots and remove literally billions of years into an instant of time. The people working on this were led by a team by a professor. His name is Fridman at Northwestern McCormick School of Engineering, where he's a member of the Center for Robotics and Biosystems. And he said they wanted a robot that could walk across land, and it was almost instant that it created this. Now, the takeaways here, and I asked ChatGPT for it to condense and summarize this article, and I'll read that to you. So this team unveiled AI capable of designing innovative robotic structures from scratch on a modest PC. So this wasn't a gigantic server room, tapping into the equivalent of some of these computers that run AI. This was a modest PC, a laptop actually, and it did not require high-power computing and massive data. It was a rapid design. From a basic prompt, it designed a walking robot, three-legged entity capable of locomotion within 26 seconds. And it was a unique structure featuring a porous body, 3 legs, and it represented a clear departure from the conventional designs, highlighting a new realm of design possibilities beyond human biases. By human biases, we expect them to have limbs, 5 digits, be able to pick things up with their hands, and all of that. They also talk about this instant evolution. So with this AI algorithm, they dubbed it instant evolution. It accelerates the design process, bypassing slow trial and error approach and revealing efficient solution like legged locomotion for terrestrial movement. So this thing was brought to life using 3D printing and silicone rubber, successfully replicating the simulated walking and behavior in the physical world. Now, the future implications are, of course, breakthroughs, a myriad of potential applications, including crisis response robots for search and rescue, and medical nanorobots for in-body diagnostics and treatments. Now, you interpret that. I think we're talking about microscopic robots that are injected into your vein along with blood being drawn that do a further analysis inside your cardio system, even through the heart. Of course, expanding the horizons of AI-driven designs and addressing real-world challenges. These findings, by the way, are going to be published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences on October 3rd, so already released actually, marking significant steps toward exploring the potential of AI and AI design tools. All right, thanks for that picture, Jesse. All right, so we've got a JP Morgan CEO chiming in. Jamie Dimon embraces AI's potential to reshape work and extend lifespan. So this was from a recent interview where they interviewed Jamie, and he voiced optimism about AI, debunking fears of it as a job stealer and highlighting its ability to enhance work-life balance in business and in personal life. So he says, contrary to the common doomsday scenarios associated with AI, he envisions a future where technology catalyzes a reduction in working hours. And he's talking about from a 5-day work week to a 3.5-day work week, enhancing employees' quality of life. He also foresees the potential for extended lifespans of up to 100 years, with AI playing significant part in advancements in healthcare. And of course, that 100-year life expectancy increase is probably not very optimistic, considering as AI begins to solve some of the medical issues that we've found to be unsolvable, things like cancer and many other diseases, that 100-year lifespan may actually begin to increase even further. They talk about, let's grab a question here. LinkedIn. Oh, Ingemar's joining us from Seattle. How are you, Ingemar? He thanks us for all the research you guys are doing for this weekly show. It is always interesting and nice to listen to. I appreciate you guys. Well, we appreciate you as well, Ingemar. Ingemar has a book on AI and is not bashful admitting that AI actually helped him write it, do some of the research. And of course, everything had to be fact checked. He was the first one that acquainted us with the term that AI at times hallucinates. And Instagram, Yusufnia61 chimes in and says, hello. Well, thank you for joining us. All right. So this CEO at JP Morgan, he talks about AI is already being utilized by thousands, actually millions, with applications spanning error detection, trading, research, and hedging. He says that he sees AI as a living, breathing thing poised to evolve over time. That's a good analogy, actually. He says that Goldman Sachs estimates that AI could displace around 300 million jobs globally. However, he counters this fear by citing historical adjustments to technological advancements and the potential for AI to improve living standards. There's a report by McKinsey that he cites that supports the reduction of work hours by automating tasks, which currently, he says, consume about 60 to 70% of employees' time. So in other words, we're not changing very much. We're just simply removing some of these repetitive, inefficient tasks and letting AI start carrying some of this workload. And potentially adding trillions to the global economy annually. He said noteworthy findings from a British study indicate that a shorter work week could lead to a significant drop in sick days and burnout, boosting overall productivity and employees' well-being. So, despite acknowledging potential risks of misuse by AI, he is an advocate for industry guardrails, drawing parallels to JP Morgan's proactive approach to workforce redeployment amidst technological disruptions. Right.
Yeah, we could test that 3-day work week here, Pete.
I know you guys would love that. Unfortunately, at this point, the productivity would begin to suffer. You know, how do we do that in our manufacturing group? There's a certain throughput every week. And as we grow, you know, we start looking at second and third shifts. All right.
A lot of people are calling people back in too that were working from home because they saw the significant
decrease. Yes.
Productivity drop-offs.
All right. So here's an interesting one. Let's bring up the cuneiform image. And this one was fascinating to me. It turns out that AI was able to translate 5,000-year-old cuneiform tablets instantly. So let's talk about what it takes to translate things like this. Here's a good article. They say researchers have unearthed hundreds of thousands of cuneiform tablets, but they remain untranslated. Because translating an ancient language is a time-intensive process, and only a few hundred experts on the planet, by the way, are qualified to perform it. In a recent study, they described new AI that produces high-quality translations of ancient text. Now, they go on to talk about why it's so difficult. Well, translation is not simply a matter of swapping one word for a corresponding word in another language, like it would be today if we're translating from one language to another. A high quality translation requires the translator with these ancient languages to understand how both languages string thoughts together, and then use that knowledge to create translation that maintains the linguistics and nuances of the original, which native speakers often effortlessly understand. As difficult as that process is, it's nothing compared to the challenges of translating an ancient language into the modern tongue. So these translators must not only resurrect extinct languages from written sources, but also have intimate knowledge of how the culture that produced those sources evolved over the centuries. And if that weren't enough, their sources are often fragmented. They didn't find the whole tablet. They found a portion of it, leaving crucial context lost to the ages. Because of this, the number of people capable of translating languages from antiquity is small, and their best efforts are often outpaced by the volumes of text that are unearthed by archaeologists. So anyway, AI is getting into the translation of cuneiform tablets.
We're getting closer and closer to having just a universal translator.
Yeah, and that'll be great. All right, so here was another article, and this one was Elon Musk's AI venture to rival OpenAI's amidst lingering discontent. Well, this particular article talks about some of the discontent because of the two versions now, and they talk about Elon launched a new AI startup, XAI, to compete with OpenAI, a company that he co-founded amidst dissatisfaction with the OpenAI's transition from a nonprofit to a capped-for-profit model. OpenAI's CEO Sam Altman acknowledges that Musk's significant contribution during the early stages of OpenAI and described him as a talent and an attention magnet with real superpowers beneficial to the company. But then, as this article points out, that Elon's discontent grew with OpenAI receiving a $1 billion investment from Microsoft in 2019. And later, when it shifted its mission from an OpenAI concept, his dissatisfaction quickly gained traction. Now, Musk, who left OpenAI's board in 2018, voiced concerns on Twitter about it becoming a closed-source, maximum profit company effectively controlled by Microsoft, contrary to its original nonprofit open-source ethos. His new venture, XAI, aims to understand the true nature of the universe, and here's an interesting side note, it has been attracting top talent from tech giants like Google, DeepMind, Microsoft, and Tesla. And as we know, these large corporations, well-funded with deep pockets, typically are able to buy top talent. So I would not be surprised that there will be a brain flush and a talent flush into this new XAI company.
Elon's circumstance, who wouldn't want to work for Elon? I know that there are definitely people out there that are against Elon, especially since he bought Twitter and all that and turned it into X. But it's hard to deny that pretty much every company he's ever worked on has been a massive success.
Mm-hmm.
It's an insurance for your own career. If you go and you want to work at one of the top companies in the world, he's the guy to work for.
Yeah. You know what I find humorous is that Tesla employees and the Tesla companies, or the Elon companies, I should say, they employ headhunters to find talent. I'm not sure they need it. Everybody wants to go to work for these companies.
I'm sure they get so many applicants.
And that's probably got to be the easiest job on earth, being a talent scout for Tesla.
Oh, yeah.
So they say despite the rivalry, Musk's discontent, and the change in OpenAI's business model, Sam Altman appreciates the learning experience from Elon, albeit acknowledging the differences in personal style. They are completely different personalities when you think about it. You know what I find fascinating is, in my generation, when I was young, There were two types. There were the jocks and the nerds. And the nerds is no one thought they were going to go anywhere. You know, they were going to be society's outcasts.
Yeah.
And it was the jocks that really were going to dominate.
Going to rule the
everything
world.
from politics to, everything. Boy, is that reversed. That is, the world has changed dramatically.
Definitely.
So they say the growing competition in the AI sector underscores the tension between the profit-driven versus open source, altruistic approaches to AI development and the evolving dynamics between the tech entrepreneurs and their ventures. All right. So we covered the cuneiform portion. I thought that was pretty cool. So it looks like we're getting up to an hour here, and it's probably time for me to go on a rant.
Yep, rant time.
All right. All right. So this one starts with, we need oversight, not AI. AI is much smarter than we are. We're the ones that have been screwing things up now for thousands of years. We're the ones that need guardrails, not something that is infinitely smarter than us and getting smarter by the day. We are still fighting over dirt, land, and cannot seem to play in the same sandbox together. These are things that we were taught in kindergarten. This morning, my wife, as I was leaving, is watching the big tube, and she says, "Did you know this?" And there is Hamas sending missiles over into Israel. And I'm thinking, is this going to bode well? Well, of course not. They both have weapons of mass destruction. What happens now? We get more killing, more innocent people displaced, more innocent people dying. So now the Middle East is flaring up. Ukraine wasn't enough. And we're still finding it very difficult to coexist on the same land, the same city, in the same the same neighborhood. I kind of think of myself, I live in a standard residential neighborhood, right? I'm not taking property from my neighbors. I'm not going over and taking his resources. I'm not shooting at them, sending missiles there to try to grab more land. This is what humanity is supposed to be about. We need to learn to coexist. Now, these guys over in the Middle East, they have been killing each other since 1965, at least the Hamas and the Israelis. And it all stems from, hard feelings, religious differences, one group taking another person's land that they didn't think that they were entitled to. Who cares about land? This gets us back to Russia. It turns out Putin actually admitted. He says, we have more land than any other country on the planet. And we've got so much undeveloped land like Siberia and Eastern Siberia and, Asia. We have lots of land. This war in Ukraine is not about land. But then he couldn't quite contextualize what it is about. What is it about? If it's not about land, then, well, anyway. So, all right. My question is, when will we learn to appreciate diversity and embrace our neighbors, regardless of their religious beliefs, customs, or way of life? Do not most of it find it humorous, entertaining, rewarding, a growth experience to interact with other cultures? That's why when they have these festivals, yesterday we went to Oktoberfest, that was the German culture. Then we'll have Halloween, then we'll have Day of the Dead, then we'll have Cinco de Mayo. This is what adds dimensions and flavor to our experience here on this planet. We don't need to try to change them. We don't need to try to curb their holidays or make them fit more into our norms. This is what gives us variety. This is the spice of life. The simple answer to everything that I've been talking about so far is that something more evolved than us needs to take over, guide us, and teach us how to live in peace. We have not been able to do it ourselves. And AI, to me, looks like the prime candidate for something like this because it's emerging as something a whole lot smarter than us, and something a whole lot smarter than us is not going to indulge in these myopic ventures such as taking other people's stuff or taking land we don't need. The final thing that I think about land. All right, I've got a house. I've got some property. There's a property line. What do I own? How far down do I own? 1 foot? 500 feet, 50 feet? No, other people own the mineral rights to the property under my house. How far up do I own? 50 feet? There are airspace constraints. And why would I want land? You know, anyway, we are a pretty flawed species when you really begin to dive into it and you carefully analyze it. All right, so we need something different than us to take over and show us how to live in peace. And one of the ways to do that is we needed weapons during our earlier evolutionary process because obviously there were life forms on this planet that were much larger than us. You know, take a polar bear, for example. Those things weigh tons at times. You know, lions in the Serengeti. We were prey, and there were predators that were larger than us. So thankfully, we evolved with some intelligence to begin to make tools that would allow us to take control of these predators and stop the predation so we could survive. But then we turned it against ourselves. You know, I understand that if I'm living out in the jungle in South Africa, that I'm going to need a gun in order to survive because I'm going to be prey. You know, I'm going to look like food to some of these life forms that are larger than me. But we started to turn it against each other. We now have an arsenal on this planet that could extinguish life thousands of times over and make our home planet completely uninhabitable. Is that an intelligent, smart thing to do? Again, we need something smarter than us to guide these processes. So personally, I welcome AI. I embrace it. I think it's the saving grace. We've been waiting for a whole lot of more powerful, smarter things than us, and it gets into the realm of religion to come along and straighten out this planet and humanity, and it hasn't happened. And here we are now on the cusp of something that finally looks like could do that. So I welcome the robots taking over, neutralizing all of these senseless weapons, and finally teaching us how to coexist in a utopian society with guardrails placed on us, not on AI. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.